to episode 4 of the SBK Saturday Night Selections. We're working our way through the Triple Crown. We got a week off this week from the trail. We got the Belmont upcoming in the next few weeks, but we'll be looking back on the Preakness in this episode. We'll be looking forward to the Soaring Softly Stakes as well over at Belmont. We'll also have action from Salisbury to look at as well, but that's all to come in the next few moments or so. One thing that doesn't seem to change, albeit it might do in the next few weeks, other participants, myself, Lee Gelder, alongside Tom Collins. Tom, how are you?
Morning, Luke. Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Still reeling after our famous double loss last week. We didn't get off to the best start, but hopefully this week we're going to get more winners. It's a much trickier affair, I think, the Soaring Softly than the Preakness was, but it's a very good affair. Everyone should tune in for this good turf race for the fillies.
Yes, it's more of a European race.
Yeah, exactly that. European angles.
Yeah, I'd say so. I must touch on last week. I was so confident on a double. Like the week before, did I do the lucky 15 where we got 3 out of 4? No. Did I do the double? Yes.
Yeah, it didn't go to plan, did it? Mercy and him was too keen, and the race just didn't really set up. But then when it came to the Preakness, I mean, just everything went wrong from the outset, didn't it?
Yeah, I was currently on my way back driving home from a different job, and the Dartford crossing had been shut, so I had to divert. I got diverted into London somehow, and everything was going wrong on my trip home. I thought, you know what, I'll pull over, sensible. And then Epicenter, just everything went wrong from the stalls. So it was a horrible few hours for me, but Epicenter just had a torrid time of things.
Yeah, so early voting obviously won the Preakness and Epicenter finished second, but the whole race was defined at the start, right? It was the break that made early voting win and Epicenter lose. Epicenter just didn't have that early speed or that gate speed we saw in the Risen Star, the Louisiana Derby, or the Kentucky Derby. Joe Rosario tried to get him up into the firing line, but he just took a few strides longer than he would have in the previous races, as I listed. And he just couldn't get into that early position. He was crowded out, forced to go towards the back of the field. Meanwhile, early voting, drawn in the perfect gate in stall 5. Jose Ortiz, one little shake of the reins, gets into a prominent position, took a lead. Chad Brown said they weren't afraid to take a lead. They did. They sat second behind Armagnac, and the race panned out perfectly for the Chad Brown trainee, and he went on to win the Preakness.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we got right in our preview, that Armagnac was always going to go a little bit too hard, and he did. I don't know where he's going to go next, but early voting, things could not have gone better for him, whereas with the likes of Epicenter, it was a nightmare. I don't know where Epicenter is going to go next, because for me, he's not a Belmont horse whatsoever. I haven't heard any quotes coming out, but maybe he'll just go to Saratoga or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be the smart play. Look, if he's going to go to the Belmont, he's probably going to get beaten. He's not a stamina horse. At the same time, he's obviously got the class to win that race. Debatably unlucky to have lost both the Derby and the Preakness. The way he rallied up the inside at Pimlico to take second behind early voting was really admirable. I saw loads of abuse or hate towards Joe Rosario on Twitter. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought the ride was perfectly reasonable. He got a perfect trip in behind, on the rail behind Creative Minister throughout the race. Yes, he didn't get the early position that everyone wanted him to, but that was mainly the horse, not the rider, in my opinion. And the fact he rallied well, as I mentioned, on a track that definitely suited front runners, so difficult to make ground up because of the weather, that he was really admirable in defeat to finish second. I think he's a great horse going forward. I would definitely skip the Belmont, though, I have to say.
Yeah, I was obviously on the podcast last week, and we were asked who our overrated jockeys in the US were. And I said Joel Rosario, but mainly for the fact that he's number one. And I think he does make mistakes, but at a lower level. I don't think he was to blame at all for Epicenter. He started slow. He didn't get a good early position, as you say. And I don't think Joe Rosario could have done anything else. If you put Irad on Epicenter, he wouldn't have been any better than second place. If you put Jose Ortiz on board, you wouldn't have been any better than second place. It's just the way the race panned out. If he sat maybe third or fourth early on and jumped better, do I think he'd have won? Yeah, no doubt. I think he'd have been quite an easy winner. But things like that happen, and as you say, on a track that was very much favouring a pace bias and horses towards the front, he always was sort of up against it. It was just a nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah, things just haven't panned out well for Steve Asmussen's colt, have they? I mean, just being beaten by Rich Striker in the Kentucky Derby, who would have seen that coming? And then the poor break in the Preakness. He's been unfortunate. Asmussen's been unfortunate with a few star 3-year-old colts. But I think a jockey with more inexperience than Rosario would have tried to rush him up, and you'd have seen a worse result there from Epicenter. He'd have burned out too soon. He'd have had to go wide on the bend. I think he got a good trip, unlucky to lose, but he ran well in defeat. And we've seen a new star 3-year-old in early voting.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to mention Secret Oath as well, who fair play to Connections for taking on the boys again. We said last week that we thought she'd be up against it. She ran a really good race, pretty much kind of where we expected her to be as well. But I would imagine she's going to go against fillies once again next time around.
Yeah, she's 0 for 2 against the boys. She ran very respectably, as you said, and she got jostled out of things early on. She sat last. Louis Sias decided to make a move around the bend, which wasn't ideal. And she flattened out in the closing half a furlong. I think, as you just touched on, that was kind of what we expected from her. But she ran very creditably without getting a dream trip. Definitely back against the fillies, and she'll win again, 100%.
Yeah, just a quick last word before we move on from the Preakness. Early voting, Connections have said that he's not going to go to the Belmont. He'd be a silly move anyway. It's not his sort of race. But early voting will go to Saratoga, Tom, which I imagine he'd probably meet epicenter there, and there'd be quite a few others from the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness that would turn up.
Yeah, highly likely. He's probably going to be favourite next time he runs, and for the foreseeable future, Chad Brown at Saratoga, just formidable combination. He does so well at that track, and early voting. Look, what's the downside for this horse? He's only had 4 starts, clearly on a real stiff upward trajectory, and he'll probably go and win at Saratoga and then be stamped the leading 3-year-old colt.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Albeit if Mo Donegal wins the Belmont, when Mo Donegal wins the Belmont, we've got to have consistency. We've mentioned Mo Donegal winning the Belmont on every show so far. After he wins the Belmont, don't know what we're going to talk about. we're going to have to find a new horse for everyone to latch onto. But he's currently, I think he's around the 9 to 4, 5 to 2 mark of Mo Donegal. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that because we got a bit to mention on him a little bit later on. But as we mentioned at the start of the show, the Soaring Softly Stakes is the main race of the weekend. Just before we get into the runner by runner analysis, Tom, 7 furlongs on turf at Belmont.
Yeah, 7 furlongs on turf for the fillies and mares. It's a good event. It's a grade 3. We've got a massive field considering what I don't know what you were expecting, but I was expecting 6, 7, 8 runners. We've got 12/13 if you count the main track only as well. So it's a good field, a good betting heat. We won't get an odds-on favourite like we have for the last few races that we've covered on this podcast. And it's a race where you can also find an each-way angle, not just a win selection.
Yeah, I think the markets that myself and Tom have made up, we kind of make a 7 to 4 favourite in the race, but we'll get to what we might well think selection-wise. But runner by runner analysis, I'm taking the odds, Tom's taking the evens, and I'm starting with Champagne Poetry for Louis Sias, who I think is more of a back number in this. 12 to 12 in the Bourbonnette Oaks last time at Turfway. Only run on turf, finished 3rd on debut. I don't think is good enough here, Tom.
No, horse number 2 might be good enough. That's Breeze Easy, formerly trained by Dave Evans over in the UK. It's been shipped out to the US, now trained by Christophe Clement. Was bought for $350,000 and boasted an official rating of 93 in the UK. 10 to 1 on the morning line. Very intriguing runner.
Number 3 is Lost My Sock, not the same horse that won at Ripon last night for Tim Easterby, but Lost My Sock does have a chance. Was 4th in the Limestone Stakes behind Derrynan last time around. Obviously, the winner, or the second, I should say, from that race does turn up here. I think the step up in trip will help, but class is a slight question mark.
Yes, the same applies to number 4, Wish You Well. You've got another one that costs a load, $550,000. Won on debut at Gulfstream, showed blistering early pace before being beaten at Churchill. Arguably the leader in this race. Could set a slow tempo, though. Not many others will go forward 12 to 1 on the morning line.
Yeah, absolutely. Anador might try and go forward. Does have form ever a bit further than this. Did manage to win over a mile at Belmont. Last time around, though, was second behind Omixochi at Gulfstream. If you're a Gulfstream aficionado like myself, you will know that form is not good enough to winning this race. Tom, and needs to step up.
Yeah, another horse that also needs to step up is number 6, Snow Loves a Fight. You won't miss her in the race. She's a grey filly. Irad Ortiz rode her to victory last time out. She got off the mark on the 4th attempt, but now Irad jumped ship to number 12, Shadi Party, who we'll come to in a minute. This filly needs a big step up, 20 to 1.
We get to the contenders, the wider we get draw-wise. And we get to number 7, Wonka, who I think is a really intriguing runner here. Was impressive over an extended mile at Gulfstream. Trip, I don't think it's going to be any sort of issue. Did run a bare speed figure of 74 that day, so we'll need a bit extra, but there's more to come from Wonka. I'm a little sweet on this one, Tom.
Yeah, and I'm a little sweet on this next one. The morning line favourite, Haughty, number 8, Chad Brown, Flavien Prat, the ideal combination in New York or across the country, some might say. She finished 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Brilliant effort, given she was posted wide on the bend. She's going to go off favourite. She's 5 to 2 on the morning line. I think she'll be around 7 to 4 at the off.
Yeah, I'd agree with you regarding price. I think that the main danger to Horty is Derrynan, the 9 horse in the race. Joel Rosario on board, our friend from last week, was second in the Limestone Stakes, was so unlucky in that contest, though, behind Rithin, who, for what it's worth, I think Rithin was the best 2-year-old that Wesley Ward had last season. I know performances on the racecourse don't really back that up, but Rithin could be a nice horse this year. And with the setup, hopefully Derrynan can go one better here.
Yeah, she'll be towards the back of the field, and one horse that will be forward placed is Sail By, number 10. Real speedy filly. She won the Grade 2 Miss Griot Stakes last year. She hasn't really come back this season with a great burst. She got beaten easily on her comeback, but she could be a major player if she takes a step forward. She's 15-1, could be a little bit shorter in the off.
The 11 horse here is Eureka for Manny Franco, but traveled pretty powerfully in the Appellation more recently. Stamina is a slight question mark for me. Did win over 7 furlongs at Dax over in France before heading over to the US, and has won over 6.5 at Santa Anita, but would be another one that I'd assign the tag on, Tom, of needs a little bit more here.
Yes, and finally, my last horse in this race is Shardy Party, number 12, represents Wes Ward, so will be well founded in the betting, and it's unbeaten after one start. Was bought from Tattersalls in Newmarket before shipping to the US, closed well from off the speed at Keeneland, but the second hasn't done anything for the form. We need to take a big step forward, but it's around 11-2, 9-2 in the morning line, and we'll go off around that price too.
Yeah, won't be the final horse you'll see on the race card, though, because the 13 is in here. That's Baby Man, is a main track only entrance. So if you're new to American racing, if there's a deluge at Belmont and the race gets taken off turf, then Baby Man will run. If there's no rain and the rain is on turf, then Baby Man will not be there. But if it's on turf, then we will not be seeing the 13. So that is the field for the Soaring Softly. First thing I wanted to mention to you, Horty. We are going to be hated by Americans for pronouncing it like that. They go Horty, and I just can't do it.
No, I don't feel like we have the cojones, as they would say. I didn't expect myself to say that on this podcast either, but I think we're going to go for the English pronunciation of Horty. Maybe the commentator will prove us wrong when he's calling her past the posting first.
Yeah, potentially. I know Horty is the one that you like most for win purposes. So I'll hand over to you. Tell us why you think Horty will win the Soaring Softly.
Yeah, okay. Before I go into the reason behind this, I need to say she's not my number one pick in the race. I think she's very much the horse to beat, and I really wouldn't be surprised she won. But she's a reasonably short price favourite. 5-2 on the morning line. If we get that, then I'll definitely be having a bet on her. But I think she'll open a little bit shorter, and that may tempt me to my number one selection, which we'll come to later. But Horty won her first 2 starts, albeit first time out she got disqualified and placed 3rd. Second time at Keeneland, she bolted up. She was a short price, but she ran away with that race. Keen early, you may have expected her to fold up and not produce the finishing kick that we saw on debut, but she really just moved away from that field. Really impressive performance. And then on her 3rd outing, she went to the Breeders' Cup in the Juvenile Fillies turf. She was sent off 4-1 favourite, which just shows you, 1, how well regarded she is, and 2, what obviously we expected to see on the racetrack. And she lived up to that hype. She finished 3rd. It was a good effort. It wasn't a great effort. She got beaten by a couple of horses, Pizza Bianca, who lost first time up this year, but then won second time up, and Malavath, who lost in the Guineas over here, French-trained horse. I think that effort was the best performance we've seen in this race. I think she sets the form standard. The question mark is she going to return in her best form? And she drops down in trip. I think that will suit the latter there, because she was keen in her races over a mile or an extended mile, and the drop back to 7 furlongs should be a positive for her. I think she's very much the horse to beat.
Yeah, I respect Horty, I have to say. But at the prices and what she's done on the course, I prefer others. What was the shortest price you would back Horty at?
I think 2-1. I think 7-4 is the fair price, but I don't feel like there's much value there. I feel like that's the price she's going to open up or be sent off. If she goes bigger than 2-1, 5-2 on the morning line, if she matches that, I think that's a very fair price for a filly that we definitely haven't seen the best of yet.
Yeah, the horse that I like, it would be my most likely idea of the winner, will be Derrynan, who I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Joel Rosario taking the ride. I can't believe that she's only won 2 races in her career. She's raced 5 times. She was probably the best horse in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. She was definitely the best horse last time around in the Limestone Stakes, and she didn't win either of them. She finished 4th in the Breeders' Cup. She finished 2nd at Keeneland last time around. I mentioned That was behind Rithin, who I think is a horse that we both liked coming over to Royal Ascot last year. And Rithin ran okay, but there were reports that maybe Rithin wasn't training quite right at that sort of time, and they backed off. And Rithin made a very pleasing restart to her career. But Derry Nan just came from so far back. I think this trip is going to suit her down to the ground as well. She's been running over sort of 5.5 furlongs. She's been finishing her races so strongly. Anyone who tuned into the Breeders' Cup last year as well, remember, if you were anywhere towards the rear, in a sprint at least, you had no chance. You were done. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, Twilight Gleaming made every single yard of the running. In the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, Golden Pal just blew out the stalls, and that was it. The race was over after about 3 strides. Derry Nan might not get the perfect setup here, but I just feel that she could be a really, really good horse, Tom. And I expected when I first saw the field to see her as favourite. The fact that she's probably not going to be, I'm very happy about that.
I think she'll probably go off around 3-1. What was she in the morning line? 7-2, right? I think probably that's a bit not optimistic. Well, optimistic, I guess, if you fancy her, but unrealistic if you want to punt her. She was a major eye catcher on her return, as you say. She closed so well into second and was unlucky not to beat Ruthin on the line. Whereas was trained sprinters, a bit more precocious and speedy than Derry Nan. But Derry Nan, you said you're sure that she's going to handle the trip. That's my one concern with her. I know how well she's been finishing over the 5.5 furlongs, but her pedigree suggests that 6 furlongs is the ideal distance. And the way she shapes in her races suggests this trip should be no problem. And if you watch her last effort or the Breeders' Cup on the replays, you'll see that she finishes best of all. I think she's probably better suited to a real sprint where they go hard early and maybe fall into pieces close home, and then she picks them up rather than trying to use her stamina and speed at the same time. Also, I'm a bit concerned about where she's going to sit early. I know you said you're not 100% sure what trip she's going to get. I think Joel Rosario is going to be a bit passive in the saddle again and sit towards the back and hope for a late run. And that would require her to run down the likes of Haughty and a couple of other horses who we're going to touch on in a minute.
Yeah, I agree with that. The trip is the slight issue. Obviously, we saw with Epicenter and learned the hard way last week that being at the back isn't the most ideal position. I disagree strongly about 7 furlongs. Strongly disagree. I think that's going to be absolutely fine for her. I think she'd win over 6. She'd win over 5, to be honest. I think she's just a very good horse. I prefer her to Haughty, as we'll go very English and say, but she's going to be my pick in the race. You mentioned that Haughty was going to be your most likely idea of the winner, but not a bet at the prices. Who is your bet?
Yeah, so as I say, I will back Haughty if she's 5-2 or bigger, but the main bet is an each way play, and it's a horse called Breeze Easy. She's another horse trained by Christophe Clement, much like Derry Nan. Arguably the second string, but I don't really see it like that. I think they're 2 different horses. This is her first run for Christophe as well, so we're yet to really compare her to the likes of Derry Nan and Haughty. We don't really know how she's going to stack up, but I think that factor means we're going to get a better price on her. I think the US punters are going to just try and ignore her because her form in the UK was good without being amazing. She was rated 93, as I touched on. She finished second in a listed race as well at Newbury. Got beaten by a horse called Jumbly, who just relished the soft ground that day. She finished second. The soft ground just wasn't ideal, but she ran through the race nicely and produced a career best performance. I think she's open to loads of improvement. Now, we've seen her many more times than Haughty, a couple more times than Derry Nan, but I don't think we've seen her at her best. I think good ground or good to firm ground or firm ground, depends how much rain's going to fall, but whatever we're going to get at Belmont, I think that's really going to suit Breeze Easy. She didn't really like the soft ground on her last 2 efforts in the UK. And the fact that Connections spent $350,000 on her suggests that they really expect her to take a big step forward. Now, her pedigree isn't amazing by any means, so they haven't just purchased her to be a dam and go to the breeding sheds. It's about what she's going to perform on the racetrack as well. I love the drawing gate too. I think she's going to sit mid-division early. There's not going to be much early pace in this race, I don't think. Wish You Well from 4 should take them on. And that should allow Javier to sit 5th or 6th and then hopefully scoot out for a late burst. She has good acceleration. This trip should suit. And at a double figure price, she's definitely my each way play.
Yeah, you mentioned pace there. The only signed on pace that I've got is the 10 horse. I think Wish You Well will probably go forward also, but they're not going to go a mad gallop. I think Sail By might be the most likely pace angle in the race, but I'm hoping they get involved into a bit of a pace duel for the hold-up horses, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. This is a turf race in New York, and they don't go hard and early when there's about 4 or 5 pace setters in the race. So when there's just 1 or maybe 2, and they're not even bona fide front runners, they just have gone forward in their previous races, then I'm not convinced they're going to go breakneck gallop, and that would play against the chances of Derrynn and also Wonka, who's a horse we haven't actually touched on yet.
Yeah, we'll touch on Wonka now, who would be my each way play into the race. Is currently, I think, on the morning line around 8-1 or so for Wonka. Yeah, 8-1 on the morning line, who I think is a horse that I like more than you do. I think you're a bit more worried about the trip, which is fair enough. But the way that Wonka's travelled through those races so far in her career, I think she could be a pretty useful individual. Obviously, won at Gulfstream last time around. That was only in a maiden special weight. Let's not get into too carried away with that. But it's the manner that she managed to win that race with. She traveled powerfully, she quickened nicely, and she just looked a class above them. She ran to a bare speed figure of 74 that day, and granted she is dropping in trip, she's not got masses to find with the likes of Derrynn and Haughty. We're talking about a horse who's only ran twice, so naturally there is going to be improvement to come from Wonka. Do I expect Wonka to win this race? No, but do I find it interesting that Belmont is going to throw her in here? Yeah, I do, and I would have Wonka as a rock solid each way play in this, Tom.
Yeah, she's an intriguing runner, isn't she? She's been running over the extended mile, and I think that's probably her ideal trip. So the drop down to 7 furlong is the one negative I have about her. But as you say, she created a lovely visual impression last time out at Gulfstream. She's only had 2 starts. She could easily take a big jump forward, and perhaps she's being overlooked in the market.
Anything else you wanted to mention that had a chance?
No, I think we've covered all the big guns.
Yeah, actually, no, we haven't. No, we haven't. We haven't at all. The Wesley Ward horse, who is out in 12, Charlie Party. This is a horse who on debut. I think you texted me because you had bad signal or something and you wanted to watch this race, and it ended up, I think I was in the washing up at the time or something. I forgot entirely about it. So I went and watched it. Very, very impressive on debut. Not many horses could run to a speed figure of 83 on debut, but the fact that Charlie Party had to come from so far back, there's a lot of ability there.
Yeah, she's very talented. As you mentioned, you sent me the replay of the race and I did watch it and think there's no way this filly's going to get up. She was miles back turning in at Keeneland and she ran down a horse called Pelagroso, who I actually tipped the other day and lost, which is probably why I'm a bit sour about it and not considering Charlie Party as a major player here. She's got loads of ability. She could easily take a step forward. Interested to see how she's ridden. She's stepping up from a sprint trip to 7 furlongs. Maybe they'll be a bit more aggressive, especially from the wide gate. I think that's another negative for her. But look, this could be a real sharp filly. I thought we'd see her at Royal Ascot, but maybe that's not the plan. They're going to go here for the Soaring Softly. If she wins, I'll be crying, saying, why have I not backed this horse? Because she was so impressive first time out, but she's just not on my radar. I don't think she'll finish in the first 3.
Disagree. I've got her second in this. I've got her second. She was a very un-Wesley Ward horse. On her debut, she showed no early pace. She was right out towards the back of the field. She was drawn towards the inside and things were a nightmare from the start. But she was the only horse to make up any sort of ground whatsoever. You mentioned when Pelagroso was out in front, was always on the lead. And the horses that were in second, third, fourth, they were generally thereabouts for the majority of the race. Charlie Party came from about 10th or 11th as they turned for home, had about 10, maybe a little more lengths to find up on the turn for home. So impressive. I couldn't ignore Charlie Party. The draw's not ideal, but I think they'll ride her pretty similar again today. But I think this is the first big disagreement we've had on the Saturday night selections. So not that you're tipping a TriCast. What would you put as your 1, 2, 3 in this?
I think Haughty's the most likely winner. Breeze Easy is going to be my main selection. I think she'll finish in the first 2. And then probably Derrynn, she'll pick up the pieces for third.
Opposite. Derrynn, I think, will win. I think Charlie Party will be second. And I'll put Wonka in third. I'm going for a complete Haughty blowout in this.
If that happens, then, well, you're a braver man than me. To be fair, I'll be giving you the kudos this time next week if you get that right.
I'll do the same for you with Breeze Easy because I cannot have her whatsoever, but best of luck with Breeze Easy. We have got Salisbury to look at very quickly as well. I think we've both got one selection each. Yours comes in the staying contest a little bit later on the card, doesn't it?
Yes, Duke of Verona in the 8:15 at Salisbury. I found this card really tricky, and I'm on Sky Sports tomorrow, and I did look at Foss Lass, which I will be covering in the studio, and genuinely have no strong selections there either. So we're sticking to the 8:15, which is Duke of Verona. There are a couple of horses in here that bring good form to the table. Orin Swift, who I know you would have chosen in this race, and Songo. They've both got good recent form. But I like Duke of Verona, who finished 8th on his comeback at Ascot. First time cheap pieces that day, big field. And he was ridden out the back. Just impossible to make ground up that day in a much better race than this. Last year, he looked a proper performer. He finished 3rd to a smart horse at Newbury as well. I think he's going to take a step forward. He's the class in this race. And I don't know what price we're going to get about him, but I think he's definitely the most likely winner.
Yeah, I was going to go for Orin Swift in this, but to be honest, Duke of Verona being in there, and Orin Swift did get the run of the race last time around. I've gone against Orin Swift, or not against, but I've not tipped Orin Swift. I have, however, tipped in the 610 for Regal Envoy for Clive Cox and Liam Canary, who last time around over 6 furlongs had a horrible draw, had to jump out, use a lot of energy up early on to get over to the far side rail with Hector Crouch on board. It just got a bit tired in the closing stages. There was no real shame in that at all. I think the trip will very much help out this time, is over 5 furlongs. The draw is a bit kinder as well in stall 6. And if managing to get to the front, which I don't see any reason why Regal Envoy wouldn't, then I don't see Regal Envoy coming back to them. This is an easier race as well. Makarova, the horse that managed to collar him last time around, is a horse who came here in very good form and will likely win more races as well. So I'll side with Regal Envoy in the 610, Tom in the 815 with Duke of Verona. They're the Salisbury selections, albeit it is a very, very muddling card. We'll get into questions because we've got 3/4, depending how long we take. Question 1 is from John. It says, when can we expect to see Mo Donegal run next? I'll take this. Mo Donegal will next be seen winning the Belmont Stakes on the 11th of June. Yeah, 11th of June. But yeah, that's when we'll see Mo Donegal next winning. Question 2 from Tom. Was this from you?
No, it wasn't from me. I didn't ask myself my question.
What's next for Chad Brown's Speak of the Devil?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you, Tom, for tweeting me.
Good question, me. Well done.
In truth, I don't actually know the answer to this question, but she'll definitely be targeted at some of the leading mile races this year. She was so impressive on her first US start after moving from France. That came at Churchill and she just romped clear. I think she was suited by the giving the ground that day. She's actually worked recently at Belmont, I think 4 days ago, 5 days ago, May the 22nd, and she worked really nicely. So she's in New York right now. I imagine they're probably going to go Saratoga with her. But she's a very sharp filly to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, if you want to watch replays, by the way, of any Churchill performances, Churchill are a little bit more tricky with their videos and watching races live. The website is actually very accommodating for that. It's completely the opposite. I think you have to make an account, Tom, but that's free. And then you can watch any replay you want, just put the date and the race in, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. Obviously, you can use the major UK websites like about the races for US replays. But as Luke said, Churchill's a tough one to find. There are other tough ones to find. And also YouTube's a good angle for the likes of Turfway and some other different tracks.
Yeah, Oaklawn I throw into that mix as well. And Monmouth, a nightmare to find. Question 3. What are our early Epsom Derby and Oaks picks? This is from Ken and Josh asking the same question. So Tom, I'll let you lead.
Yeah, difficult one. I don't want to do some horrific after timing, but I'm going to. I'm on Desert Crown for the Derby. I backed him at 40s before the season started. I backed 2 horses. I'll clarify this to make the after timing sound a little bit better. I backed Antarat as well, who unfortunately is out for the year. Desert Crown was the other one. So I'm hopeful that SBK ambassador Richard Kingscote will ride the winner at Epsom. And in the Oaks, I have no strong opinion. I think Emily Upjohn deserves to be favourite. She's obviously got the best form in the book, leading connections, and her York win was just really decisive. Maybe the dark horse in the race is Tranquil Lady for Joseph O'Brien. Obviously, his above the curve has been taken out of the race. This is the number 1 string now, but I wouldn't be surprised if the favourite got off the mark.
I'm the opposite. I've got no real strong view in the Derby, but I think Emily Upjohn will win the Oaks. I've been seriously impressed by Emily Upjohn. I'm going to do the opposite and not brag about after timing. I'm going to brag about being a muppet. She was about 7 or 8 to 1 after she won at Sandown. I thought that was impressive. That could be a really nice horse. And I'll leave it a few days. Then she went into 4s. I was like, there's no point now. Then she won the Musadora. She's now around even money or so. Yeah. Emily Upjohn. So I'm sitting here without a ticket on Emily Upjohn, but her form is just stacking up left, right, and centre. You go back to that Sandown run where she dismantled a good-looking field. There's winners coming out of that. I think the 11th has won, the 10th has won. Emotion has won and been beaten since I think a listed race over at Goodwood. There's a horse I've got in my tracker called New Year's Honours who was 5th. I think that runs in a handicap of like a mark of 70 or something in a few days' time, that will win. 740 at Windsor, by the way, on Monday. If you want a selection for going forward on that. But I really like Emily Upjohn. I know it's boring, but around even money or so, I think she'll just take the world of beating. And I haven't really got a strong view in the Derby, so I'll pass on that, and I'll let Tom bask in the sun on that part. And question 4, a jumping one. That's a first. Does Aplitard deserve to be rated higher than Allaho?
I can't believe we're answering a jumping question, a jumps question in May. Unbelievable behaviour. But look, I'll answer this as quickly as I possibly can. And I would say, yes, Aplitard does deserve to be rated higher than Allaho. Only £3 difference right now on official ratings and on RPRs. They're carbon copy of each other. So I think that's a good indication that the rating is correct. Allaho is very impressive, obviously, for the last year and a half. When he steps up to 3 miles full time for the whole season, I know we saw him over 3 miles last time out. I think we might see a better horse, and maybe he'll leapfrog Aplitard in the ratings. But right now, Aplitard deserves to be rated higher.
Agree. One thing that always irks me a little bit is that the ratings are done on their best performance. Aplitard's best performance was scintillating in the Gold Cup. Allaho, very, very good, don't get me wrong, but Aplitard, his best performance was probably better than Allaho's best performance. That's where the rating has come from. That's why Aplitard is rated higher than Allaho. All round and consistently, is he a better horse than Allaho? Maybe not. But on that performance, yeah, he 100% was. So yeah, I agree with that entirely. Thank you to everyone for your questions. Get them through on Twitter to the SBK account or to Tom. Tom will find them no matter what. I still need to make a new Twitter.
Come on, mate, you're slacking here.
I know, I'm getting on that. But we'll get to it. That's pretty much us done for the day. Do remember, SBK offer, new SBK customers will get £30 in free bets by depositing £10. T's and C's do apply. That's a pretty much weekly rolling offer as well to new SBK customers. So come join us on that front, and hopefully we'll enjoy a bit of success on the American front this weekend. Tom, just clarify your selections for us.
Yeah, and the Soaring Softly Stakes at Belmont, the selection is Breeze Easy. She's going to be around 10-1. I think she's good each way play. And then at Salisbury in the 8:15, Duke of Verona is the sole play. Hopefully we'll be confident after Duke of Verona going into the Soaring Softly.
Yeah, I'll take in the Soaring Softly Derry Nan, who hopefully will get a nice setup. And in the 6:10 at Salisbury, I'll take Regal Envoy for Clive Cox and Liam Kinneary. But that is us done for this week on the SBK Saturday Night Selections. You can catch us on all major podcast providers. You can catch us Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, whenever the podcast does go out. You can subscribe on YouTube as well, and then you'll be updated when a new video does go up. And also any comments, leave in the comment section below. We'll get back to you on the week after podcast. But Tom, thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, Luke. Best of luck with Derry Nan.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in a week's time. Until then, have a very good weekend and week. Stay safe. Look after another. Goodbye.